Here at Autocar India, we like to bring you reviews as fresh as they can come. And right now, it doesn't get much fresher than the 2018 Auto Expo. Well, the expo is just over, and while everybody else packs up their stalls, BMW is having a bit of a party for its employees. And we were there too. But we didn't come for the party, we came for something even better. That's right, we are here to drive 3 of BMW's Expo stars right off the show floor.
Now, as exciting a party as this is, and it really is, I really need to get down to testing this car. So, without any further ado, let's hit the road.
The next morning, away from the flashy lights of the expo, I got to properly take in the new 6 Series Gran Turismo. It's BMW's answer to the long wheelbase E-class and a car that will bridge the gap between the 5 and 7 Series. But unlike the previous 6 Series, which was a flashy style statement, this one has a more practical lift-back body. Yes, you can't escape its bulk, but they've done a great job of disguising it. The roof curves nicely down to the tail, and the long, slim tail lamps make the rear look less chunky. At the front though, it doesn't look all that different from a 5 Series. The 6 GT is currently only available in the base Sportline trim, so there's no M Sport body kit or added chrome, and the standard wheels do seem a bit plain. So yes, it's not a conventional sedan shape, but if the 3 Series GT has taught us anything, it's that Indians don't mind a different body style if it means more space and comfort. But how does the big beamer feel on the road? Let's find out.
Now, this being a 6 Series, it has to fit between the 5 Series and the 7 Series in BMW's lineup, right? And that should reflect in the way it drives. So does it? Well, the 5 Series may be a lot more luxurious now, but it is still quite a sporty sedan to drive by segment standards. And though all BMWs are a little sporty to drive, the 7 Series is a limo and it has that big plush feeling. So what is the 6 Series GT like?
Well, for a start, you need to know that at launch, this car is only available as a 630i. Yes, that now means a turbocharged 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, just like in the 3 and 5 Series. But while in the 530i you get 252 horsepower and 350 Newton meters, in the 630i there's 6 more horsepower and 50 more Newton meters of torque.
Now that added 50 Newton meters makes all the difference. It's now up to 400 Newton meters, and that's what you need to move such a big and heavy car a little bit more effortlessly. Now, I've currently got the car in comfort mode, and of course that means that the responses initially are a bit slow and sluggish, but that's just fine if you want this car to be a luxury limousine with somebody sitting in the back. But if you want it to be a BMW, what you have to do is basically turn it over to sport mode using the drive selector and tap the gear lever to the left. And watch this. It's an altogether different animal. It's a proper BMW now.
In classic BMW fashion, this engine really likes to rev despite the turbocharger. But when you aren't going hell for leather, it's actually very refined. It's also worth mentioning that this motor is fully compatible with BS6 emission standards.
So what about the handling? Does it handle like a BMW, or is it just a little too grown up and more of a luxury car? Well, that has a lot to do with the suspension setup, because this car, as standard, has air suspension.
This also means it can be softened and firmed up at the touch of a button, and you can do the same for the steering weight too. So if you keep it in sport mode, what you get is a quick and nicely weighted steering, and the dynamics are nice and tidy, if not outright sporty.
Body control is very impressive, and I have to say it shrinks around really well and it doesn't feel half as large as it actually is. But because this is air suspension, I suspect it still errs more on the side of a big luxury car and less on the side of a sporty BMW sedan.
So it's not quite as sharp as a 3 or a 5 series to drive, but it's certainly a lot more enjoyable from behind the wheel than a Mercedes E-class. But of course, the real litmus test in a car like this should be taken in the back seat. So let's go do that.
Now, part of the positioning of the 6 GT between the 5 series and the 7 series is the wheelbase. You see, it is the exact same wheelbase over 3000 millimeters as the standard 7 series. Now, we don't get the standard 7 series in India, we get the long wheelbase car. So this really fits perfectly between the 5 and the 7 in our Indian range. And now it's hard to sit in this back seat and not make a comparison to the long wheelbase E-class, because really that is this car's main rival. That is the car this car is here to take on. And just look at the legroom back here, it is tremendous. I know I'm not the tallest person, but even you would agree there's so much more room to stretch out that nobody would have a problem back here. And when it comes to speccing this car, BMW has put their focus on the back seat. That's why you get electric sun blinds over here, you get screens, and you get 4-zone climate control. And mind you, all this is standard. And like in the long wheelbase E-class, what complements the excessive backseat room is a rear seat back that reclines electrically.
However, it's important to note that the 6 GT seat back only reclines by 9 degrees, whereas the Mercedes one has a full 37 degrees of travel. Although both cars do get a nice soft cushion over the rear headrest. And overall, though it's a very comfortable bench in its own right and the space here is incredible, the E-Class with its 2 individual rear chairs offers the plusher experience. But how about ride comfort back here?
Now, the other thing BMW has made sure to give this car standard is air suspension at all 4 corners, and that really impacts the way it rides. Typical of air suspension, there is a little bit of jiggliness, but I gotta say body control is pretty tightly managed. However, the car is now in sport mode, which is rather impressive. But when you put it into comfort mode, what you get is this lovely pillowy soft ride that only air suspension can give you. But you can take it one step further. There is something called Comfort Plus, and that makes it even softer, and you truly feel like you are riding on a cloud. However, the flip side to this is that you do bounce around quite a lot in this mode, so sometimes on our poor roads, it's better to leave it in just comfort.
And that's just the thing, because of the way BMW has spec'd even this base variant of the 6 GT, you have the ability to tailor the driving experience to your needs. Yes, some equipment is being saved for higher trims launching later, but a whole lot of good stuff is standard too, like a huge panoramic sunroof, the new touchscreen iDrive system with gesture control, 4-zone climate control, rear entertainment screens, and for the first time in any car we've tested, Apple CarPlay that doesn't require a cable. And apart from the cabin space, you also get a huge 610-litre boot, but you have to work around the spare tire that sits in the luggage area. What BMW has done with the 6 Series GT is set it apart from the rest of its range, with the way it looks, the way it drives, and how it is spec'd. Though it's tuned for comfort, it's still quite enjoyable to drive, and the petrol engine has a good mix of performance and refinement. But we'd still like to wait for the diesels to give you a full verdict. The back seat might not be quite as corseting as an E-Class, but then it has an equipment advantage. All in all, the 6 Series GT does deliver what its name suggests, a car that's halfway between the sporty 5 Series and the luxurious 7 Series, and all at a rather attractive price of 58.9 lakh rupees.
इसी कभी न रुकने वाले जुनून को रफ्तार देता है सर्वो वर्ल्ड क्लास लुब्रिकेंट्स।